You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hurricane Beryl breaks records and breaks forecasts and is still potentially strengthening. A 175 mile per hour Category 5 hurricane barreling through the Caribbean Sea, extremely powerful and well beyond what it was expected to achieve even last night. When it was a borderline Category 5 during our stream in the evening, and we were expecting it to possibly reach Category 5 status. Well, it's done another leap beyond that status, and 160 miles per hour is where Category 5 begins. Latest recon planes estimate that the winds are probably closer to 175 miles per hour, and possibly maybe even slightly higher than that. I'm not sure what the advisory will say at the end of the hour, but we'll be there for it whenever it appears. My name is Nathan Foy here in the Force 13 studio, and we'll be talking about this storm in great detail, obviously, over the course of the next, well, I don't know how long we'll be talking about this storm during this one stream, but we're definitely here for the hour, and I think we're just going to play it by ear. But it is an extremely powerful storm, and I think all forecasts should be thrown out of the window. It has the potential to break another record. It could become the strongest storm to impact Jamaica. Can you believe that? The strongest storm to ever make landfall on Jamaica was Hurricane Gilbert, which was 125 miles per hour, high-end Cat 3. Could Beryl make landfall on Jamaica as a Category 4? It's not out of the realms of possibility, and if it keeps going in the way that it has been, that could be a significant possibility. We've got a few cameras that we can take a look at as well, if I've got them working. I mean, first of all, we can take a look at Kingston there, looking out over the capital city of Jamaica. And you can see it's a fine morning there by the looks of things, pretty clear from what we can see, just that we've got some hazy sunshine out there, and they're pretty quiet. Of course, the storm is still quite far away from Jamaica, but it will be getting there by, obviously, tomorrow morning. We've also got a viewpoint from the capital of the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, and you can see the viewpoint there. This is one of the closest points to the storm along the Greater Antilles, but despite that, it's only got about a 10% chance of getting storm force winds here. But those are a few viewpoints that we're looking at this morning. And we had another camera as well, and that looks like it's just stopped working for me at the moment, so we'll try and get that one back. But we got these two viewpoints to be going along with at least, as well as the view from above of this extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane, and that is what it is. The earliest Category 5 in the Atlantic in modern records, and probably all records. I can't recall anything that comes close to this, and the pressure estimate probably close to 930 millibars, maybe a tad lower than that now. And it's obviously yesterday it made the most powerful landfall in the Windward Islands, and obviously in terms of how early this storm has occurred in the season is where most of the records are concentrated, and unfathomable rapid intensification phase that it occurred during the close past the approach to the Windward Islands yesterday. Well, the only good thing about today is that it won't be impacting any land areas whilst we're on the air right now, but it will be tomorrow morning, and of course we have hurricane warnings in effect for Jamaica, and there is that 5 AM National Hurricane Center cone calling for a major hurricane close past all landfall. tropical storm warnings for the south coast of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and hurricane watches now, excuse me, in effect for the Cayman Islands. And it will eventually move on towards the Yucatan Peninsula, where it will remain a hurricane, and I think it may even have a shot at still being a major by that point, and then rushing into the Gulf of Mexico. And for the first time, we've got a percentage chance for the United States. Brownsville, Texas, at 3% in the next 5 days. Well, I'm joined by a few people right now. We have Chris, Gio, JJ, and Jose. And Recon planes are in the storm right now, so I'm sure one of you will be keeping us up to date on all of those, all of that data. Apparently, there's just been another iPass. Is that right?
I'm gonna see what I can find on that. Give me one quick second.
Or I can't. Yeah, I think they're in. Oh no, they're approaching the eye right now. I just got a little bit confused with what that There's 2 planes heading into the storm. One of them is en route right now. Took off from St. Croix probably less than an hour ago, and another storm has been inside. Another plane has been inside the storm in the last couple of hours and got extremely powerful winds, which would back up this 175 mile per hour surface reading. But they got some very high flight level winds, getting up to about 190 miles per hour. And I think they got some gusts well above 200 miles per hour earlier on.
Wow.
We, J-Name, thank you very much for joining us and becoming a member there. It's nice to have you with us. And feel free to send in your comments and questions as well on the stream here. As we continue to watch this storm, it's going to be more of a Q&A than much else on this stream right now, obviously, since it's not really affecting any land masses today. If we zoom out on the storm, you can see where it may be affecting some of the very outer parts of the storm, may be affecting parts of the Lesser and Greater Antilles, Puerto Rico there, getting a few little warnings in there. What are they saying? There's quite a few special weather statements for maximum wind gusts of 55 miles per hour there across central Puerto Rico. So they're on the very edge of the hurricane on one of the outer bands. And that will swipe through the Dominican Republic fairly soon as well. But what a incredible appearance for this storm. Let's see if we're getting any visibles. Yes, we've got some first visibles here too. Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the aircraft recon. So currently you've got NOAA going into the storm, and you've got Air Force hunters in the going into the storm as well. Both flights are in progress.
Yep. And that second one, the Air Force on their way in for the first time. The NOAA plane has been in there for a little while. There will be an update at the end of the hour from the National Hurricane Center. And from there we'll see what they say, but it's pretty clear cut that this storm has at least 175 mile per hour winds and a pressure somewhere near 930 millibars. One of the most powerful storms in the Eastern Caribbean that we've ever seen as well. On parallel with Maria. It's 2017 all over again, and it's only July.
I'm gonna go ahead and kind of say my opinion on the whole Jamaica thing.
Yeah.
With all the models that I've been seeing, I was looking at it, and they're calling for a potential Category 3 landfall in Jamaica when this storm reaches it. From what I've been seeing.
I hate to be like the bringer of bad news, but I think that might be the best case scenario right now.
Oh, I think that's maybe a little bit too...
At least with how the storm's been so resilient.
I think it's the most realistic case, although there is still a possibility that the storm swings a little bit southwards. There's still a possibility that the storm swings a little southwards and avoids landfall in Jamaica, and possibly further south might end up sparing the island from hurricane force winds, maybe, but there is a hurricane warning in effect, obviously, and those in Jamaica today. It is the absolutely the day of preparation for this storm, because it is on the way and extremely powerful. And you can see again on this chart, it's going to be Wednesday morning, probably around lunchtime actually, that the storm arrives in Jamaica there.
We've seen what this storm is capable of in the Windward Islands, and you do not want to play with this storm. This storm is capable of catastrophic damage and could quite easily uproot everything you have. So take the warning seriously. If you have to evacuate, get out while you can. If you're sticking around, prepare for the worst, because that looks like it's what's coming.
Yeah, kind of add on to that. We've already seen a fatality from this storm. If you're under an evacuation order, follow it, because I think I don't know if I speak for everybody here. I think I can speak for everybody here. We don't like it when we see, fatalities that can be prevented. If you guys can get out and you guys have the ability to evacuate and you're under an evacuation order, follow it. There's no reason to be staying behind.
Remember, monetary things could be bought. You could always work back what you've lost during a hurricane. You can't work back your life. Once that's gone, that is gone.
There was a question about what with Invest 96L, which is an area of interest behind Beryl. Model support collapsed on that yesterday, and the National Hurricane Center are continuing to drop those chances down to 30%. So it's really not looking as though that system's going to form, at least before it enters the Caribbean Sea. So that worry that we had about a double whammy hurricane a few days ago, that's not going to happen, which is great news. Of course, it looks like rather than the models were sort of suggesting that they'd be of similar strength, or at least that Beryl would be sort of Category 2 and that 96L would be Category 1, but it looks like the scales have completely weighed on Beryl there and decided to, just favouring Beryl rather than 96L, and it's going to struggle, that second system. We also have Tex and A Moment of Lovely. Thank you very much for becoming members. It's great to have you on board. Dios Supremo says, if it gets stronger, should the Dominican Republic make hurricane warnings? No. Not the major parts of the Dominican Republic, but that peninsula that juts down towards the south there, they may need a hurricane warning later on today. But the capital, Santo Domingo, and Punta Cana and places like that, they shouldn't need a hurricane warning. And indeed, I can't remember if Santo Domingo's in the tropical storm warning or not. It's nearby. What's going to eventually weaken this storm? Well, the whole while the National Hurricane Center has been suggesting that it's going to be wind shear. But the question is, where is it? There's no real signs of any weakening yet from this storm. And the thing that might start it off might be an eyewall replacement cycle somewhere down the line, might be the way in for those conditions to wind shear and dry air, maybe, to get into the storm there if there's an eyewall replacement cycle going on. But Beryl has been very good at doing that so far. Well, it only did one so far, eyewall replacement cycle. But when it did, it was very good at it. It was quite quick, and it was very efficient. Dawson Godfrey, thank you very much for your support this morning. When is Beryl going to start weakening? That's what we all want to know. But like we say there, it should be soon. The peak, it's overstayed its welcome with regards to when it should be peaking. The earlier forecasts were saying that the peak should have been early this morning, and weakening should have started by now, but it hasn't. And so we wait and see from Recon, I suppose, at which point we're going to start to see this weakening begin. There's just been some new data. Does anyone want to bring that to us here? I can show it on the screen in just a sec. Just the one of the most recent data drops from the reconnaissance plane. And there it is, showing that the plane has been entering in from the eastern side there, and it's getting some pretty significant winds. I'm trying to figure out what they are there. Well, they're actually Category 4 level winds on those images, and that's at flight level. So that's the eastern side. I don't know how far away that plane is from the eye, but that's that latest info from the NOAA 3 plane there. So they'll be getting more and more data in the lead up to the next National Hurricane Center update, which is due in 45 minutes, and we will bring that to you whenever that happens. The Bogus says 180 to 185 miles per hour is possible. Well, if it keeps going in this same way, then maybe. Jaden says, why does the National Hurricane Center still have it at 165? Well, they didn't do an update statement, so they're still using, their advisory is still what it was when they issued it, which was at 5 a.m. So quite a while ago now in the grand scheme of things, because we've had these recon passes since then, which have detailed this stronger storm. So there's been no update, but we're waiting for the 8 a.m. advisory, which is their next scheduled advisory there, and that is well on its way.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Do you want the extrapolated sea level pressure for the AF300 mission that's going on?
What's it telling us?
So extrapolated sea level has it 111.5 MB.
Oh, that's because it's way up in the sky. Yeah. I thought it was adjusted for the surface.
Yeah, that's what's got it for us so far.
Okay. That was the Air Force on the way in?
Yep, that was the Air Force 300 Mission 9.
They must still be at quite a high altitude then.
Yeah.
And obviously when these planes are flying in, they have onboard instruments that detail what the pressure is where the plane is, and obviously with the atmosphere so much thinner at cruising altitude, you'll get numbers like 111 millibars, which is what you just said there. But we really want to find out what the extrapolations are down on the ground, which gives us a little bit of an idea of what the actual pressure inside the storm is. Of course, they also drop their dropsons, those little tubes with which measure the data, and that might give us a better indication of what the pressure and winds are at the surface, depending on where that dropson ends up, but they usually do it to record the pressure. So reiterate the watches and warnings right now. There's a hurricane warning for Jamaica, obviously. A hurricane watch was issued earlier, actually was issued at 5 a.m. for all of the Cayman Islands. A tropical storm warning for the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta Palenque westward into Haiti, along the south coast of Haiti, to Anstahino. And we expect that some of those watches and warnings may get extended later on, depending on where the storm is going. It's still a movement towards the west-northwest, currently moving at 22 miles per hour. And speaking of 22, that was the eye temperature a few moments ago. Latest indication is now that it is still 21 degrees Celsius. So an exceptional eye, as it has been all night. And still we're getting large amounts of convection wrapping around the storm. In terms of its actual appearance since last night, it hasn't actually changed very much. I think we had a higher confidence. When you look at this, I have no idea what that was. Actually, when you look at this imagery, you will note there on those latest frames, latest half hour or so, that the western side is, I don't want to say weakening yet, but those cloud tops are much less than what they were just a couple of hours ago there on that western side. So maybe that's the first signal we're getting here that Beryl might have reached its peak, but that obviously were being led by the data, the actual observations inside the storm from these recon planes who are currently active.
Nathan, is it fine if I show you something?
Yeah, let's go.
I am using radar scope from Puerto Rico's radar Doppler, and I'm surprised it's the only one to reach almost to the eye
Yep.
of Hurricane Barrel. Almost. I think this is just a short one.
Well, actually, I was just checking out the Force 13 website earlier, and I don't know where we've got this radar from, but it is showing radar imagery of the eye.
Yeah. It just almost, but when I look on my phone on my side, it shows like the northern eye wall, and there's a bunch of yellow.
I think
There's
it's
lots of
actually... I'll show you this right now, everyone. This is the Force 13 view. You can find this on the website. Radar of the storm. It looks awful because it's sandwiched in between. It's on the edge of coverage on two radar sites. Well, the north one is Puerto Rico, of course, and on the south
Oh, there we
side,
go.
I think it may be Aruba or somewhere, one of the ABC islands, is showing the south side of the storm there as well. So all of that rain, some significant rain bands there, heading very close to Puerto Rico. There's one or two less severe ones moving through, obviously triggering special weather statements, but that's the viewpoint from our website, and there you are with the long range from Puerto Rico with Jose just about catching the northern eye wall.
Yeah. You can, wait, hold on. Thanks. Yes, reach. I hope so. No, they
Nate.
cannot reach. I
Go
was going to
ahead.
get some winds out of it.
There's a update on the AF300 mission.
Okay.
Oh?
The satellite full mission in storm satellite data picture has the AF300 plane approaching the eye.
Yep.
The current
They've gone in-
extrapolated pressure.
They've gone in straight northeast, haven't they?
Yep. They went from wherever they took off straight northeast
St. Croix.
into the storm.
That's
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that, and we can show you that latest recon finding there as well. It's been quite steady with those winds that it's flying into there at Category 1 range, but I imagine that the next little part there is going to get very bumpy for that plane as it gets into the last part before the eye. Interesting to see what this one will come up with, and whether those winds will be as strong as they were when the first plane flew through about an hour ago.
That's a radar loop I just put up right now.
I'm just gonna see if I can grab that. Geo's telling us that they're getting 147 knot flight level.
Checking that.
Which is quite a way down from what it was on that last pass, but I don't know if they've got the proper center yet.
I mean, I'm looking at it, and they haven't updated the sea level pressure on the website that I'm using for the aircraft reconnaissance for AF300. They still have it as NA for it, so I'm not sure if that's because they're still getting the data or what, but it's not updated on this website for the Air Force hunters yet.
All right. So if you've just joined us and wondering if it's a misprint, well, I'm afraid it isn't. It's a 175 mile per hour Category 5 that we're waking up to this morning. Estimated pressure near 930 millibars. This was the latest from the recon plane earlier on that measured that kind of wind speed. We fully expect that the National Hurricane Center will follow that. One or two people suggesting that the readings may have supported even higher than this. But this is what we're going with unofficially right now, 175. National Hurricane Center's last advisory was 165, and we expect that they will upgrade based on the latest data. Be interesting if they don't, though, because if that recon plane there just has just measured maybe weaker winds and possibly the start of this weakening trend, then maybe they might just stick at 165, but we'll see. Either way, it's a Category 5 hurricane. It's a July Category 5 hurricane. It's only the second day of the month. When do we usually get our Category 5 storms? If at all in a year, it's usually in August, September, or October. It has only happened once in July, Hurricane Emily, and some people question whether that one was. But there's no question about this one, which certainly is Category 5 plus change. It's as strong as Hurricane Maria.
Man.
I'll just let that sit there for a moment.
I don't know if anybody's updated on the NOAA 3 mission, the number 8 one, but their sea level pressure is 994.4 millibars.
Well, they must be far away from the center then still. Here's a chart that's just been posted by Geo as well, showing those latest recon observations. This is the storm, the plane that flew into the storm last hour and has just done another eye pass. So they've done 2 passes there in an hour and a half, and you can see those. I'll try and explain these. The top left there, that's the blue line is the flight level winds that they captured where the plane was the first time around. Look at how strong those flight level winds were, up and above 165 knots, and on the second time around it looks like it's moderated a little bit, something like 145 or maybe closer to 150 knots there. So very interesting to see those flight level winds. Extrapolated pressure there as well in the red line, looks like it's down to about close to 930. And then you look on the top right panel, which is the surface wind estimates from the SFMRs. Earlier on it was 165 knots. Whether that was accurate or not, we're not sure. The second time around, again, much more moderate there, only getting about 135 knots on either side of the eye. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm trying to figure out, the first time around it was the northeast quad, and the second time around they're due east, so I suppose that's the difference really. But that's what we're seeing, a very curious recon pass there, with winds quite a bit down on what they were an hour ago, but I wouldn't say at this point yet that it's weakening. But it certainly has to be mentioned that western side has struggled a little bit in the last couple of hours, although a little bit more convection appearing again on that western side, so I think Beryl is not giving up at all yet. Once again, it is probably expected to still be a major hurricane. Well, it is expected to still be a major hurricane by the time it reaches Jamaica tomorrow. And if it does make landfall as a Category 4, that is the strongest Jamaican landfall on record. Doesn't matter what time of year it was, it would beat Hurricane Gilbert. Of course, stronger storms have passed either side of Jamaica, but that would be the strongest landfall. Of course, Jamaica itself, it's a larger island, of course, but it is still quite hard to hit from a storm's perspective. When you look at the shape of Jamaica, it's quite narrow against the path of the storm. It's probably been shaped back that way by millions of years of storms, but it is going to be a close one as to whether it actually does make landfall there tomorrow. But everyone needs to be getting ready over there in Jamaica. You can see the time stamp there. It's expected to be probably late morning by the time it gets there. And I think that might have been a slight slowdown in that forecast, because I'm sure we've been saying up until now that it would be early morning. But you can see by 2 a.m. Wednesday it's still closer to Haiti. So we wait for further information from these planes, which are active right now, and whatever happens we'll let you know. We'll show you a few more viewpoints here. Once again, this is Santo Domingo right now, and you can see there I assume that's looking east, because the sea there is on the right-hand side. So this area could get some of the bands of Beryl later on. It might look quite interesting later. So we'll keep watching that as the Air Force plane is now really getting in the northeast quadrant, just like the first plane did. Let's see what it's getting now. There's some new data. So the winds were very steady for a long time, and now they've really started to pick up quite quickly there in just a few minutes. And that last picture, that last barb that they got there, that's a Category 5 flight level barb. And I'm trying to figure out what wind speed that is. I think it's 145 knots. Which at flight level still wouldn't really support a Category 5 on that one. But 145 knots flight level. But once again, earlier we saw extremely high readings from Recon, which would support a 175 mile per hour storm here. One of the upper levels of how much storms can achieve in the Atlantic. Definitely, it is already a historic storm, and it is still trying to push even harder. Let's see if we can get any comments and questions right now then. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can have a little chat there. What time will Hurricane Beryl make landfall in Jamaica? How much rainfall will they get? Well, once again, landfall expected maybe near lunchtime. And as for rainfall, it's a good point actually. I'm still surprised by the models because they're depicting really relatively low rainfall amounts. I'm only seeing maximums on the GFS of 8 inches on land. It's not going to be a storm well known for its rainfall. It's just the catastrophic winds that it has right now. And sometimes, quite often, the strongest storms aren't really the wettest by any stretch. Usually the weaker storms that do that, to be honest. Of course, some exceptions, of course, given how storms track. You talk about Flora and Harvey. Of course, they were powerful storms, but they stalled for a long time over these areas. So that's how they got huge amounts of rainfall, of course, in Texas and in Cuba. So this is Hurricane Beryl right now. National Hurricane Center update on the way soon. I'll open it up to the team right now with your thoughts.
Nathan, I'm not sure if you saw what I sent you or not, but I sent you a picture of the AF300 flight path.
Yeah, we've seen that one already, actually. So that was the Air Force plane moving in from the northeast, and it's going to be getting another pass on what the strongest winds are there in that northeast quadrant. Strongest winds almost invariably end up in the northeastern quadrant when we're tracking these storms. At least in the northern hemisphere they are.
So one thing that is really kind of concerning is the AF300 mission still hasn't released the sea level pressures.
So,
they
yeah.
still don't have a sea level pressure for the AF300.
I heard that. I'm sure the National Hurricane Center will have the data, and so I guess it's for them to figure out here. But we expect at the moment that it is close to 930 millibars right now. So, an extremely powerful storm. Let me actually read out what they said in their earlier forecast discussion whilst we're waiting around a bit. They said that it remains an impressive Category 5 hurricane this morning. Satellite imagery shows a well-defined eye, expanding outflow, and a prominent outer band. They were talking about the flights that happened overnight. Moving quickly to the west-northwest, a strong subtropical ridge centered over the southern United States will continue to steer Beryl west-northwestward or westward across the central and northwestern Caribbean for the next few days. The latest track forecast was nudged slightly to the north and lies closest to the corrected consensus aid. there is still increased uncertainty in the track forecast beyond 72 hours, with the model guidance showing a large spread as Beryl emerges over the Gulf of Mexico. Basically, that means that you could get the storm anywhere from southern Veracruz all the way up to Texas. The intensity forecast is also rather uncertain. Model guidance all indicates that the hurricane will begin to weaken later today as Beryl encounters moderate to strong vertical wind shear. Later on, factors such as the possible interaction with the elevated terrain of Jamaica, dry air intrusions, and the structure of the vertical wind shear will all play a role in the rate of weakening. The models show quite a wide range of possibilities, with guidance between a strong tropical storm or a major hurricane whilst it nears the Yucatan Peninsula. And obviously they went in the middle with their forecast, so very uncertain there they're calling for. And I would agree with that. Absolutely possible that we get this storm remaining a Category 3 plus all the way to the Yucatan. And that would be in the company of not very many storms that will have made it all the way across the Caribbean as a major, but that is absolutely possible. I'm not sure if any of them did that. That would be another record. Let me just double check that info.
I believe Dean did, and that's it. Dean might be the only one.
Go ahead.
But that is still from this company.
Oh, Alan did it. Alan was Cat 4 plus all the way across.
I was gonna say Hurricane Alan.
And that was another quite early storm, really. That was the end of July, early August. So there is a little bit of form, but this is just much further beyond the pale.
This is something we haven't seen before, really, ever. Beryl continuing to shock worst 13 in the world.
Well, this is what we're tracking right now. This is what we have. It's a Category 5 hurricane moving across the Caribbean Sea, extremely powerful. And what was that? I thought someone wanted to cut in there. It has the potential to cross the whole Caribbean as a major hurricane. Jamaica, really get preparations sorted now. A major hurricane impact is possible. And you're speaking of Dean just before. Dean actually didn't quite manage it. It was only a Category 1 when it entered the Caribbean, but it rapidly intensified straight away. So yeah, really the only one was oh no, Ivan did it as well. Ivan.
Yeah, Ivan.
And I think that's it. So just a little bit more of the history there. Yeah.
The new dropzone data is in.
Okay.
The earliest, from what this is saying, newest dropzone has it at 933 millibars surface sea level.
933.
It's in casual discussion if you want to pull it up.
So I'm just checking that info right now. 933 millibars at surface, with a 15 knot wind. So we're talking about maybe 931, 932 as the bona fide pressure there by the looks of things.
Good.
Which may or may not be slightly weaker. Apparently we're looking at 2 there. They got 935 at the surface in a more recent sonde with a 13 knot wind, so the pressure's actually going up here.
Oh. I don't want to jinx anything, but
I know.
Beryl's Reign of Terror
but
coming to an end.
Well, it's not, but we've been seeing that western eye wall just getting a little bit flakier there. So perhaps we have seen the peak of this storm, but it is still a very extraordinary Category 5 Whether it's 175 miles per hour, I'm not sure what they're going to run with when we get to that update now, where they might keep it at 165 and maybe acknowledge later on that it would have been 175 earlier. But we're going to have to wait and see what they say on this. But either way, Category 5 is Category 5.
Nathan, if I can chime in real quick.
Yeah.
Air Force 300 mission into Barrel. The extrapolated sea level pressure they're getting is 984.8 millibars.
Just run that by me again.
The AF 300 mission that's in progress, that's in Barrel, has it. The extrapolated sea level pressure that they have is 984.8.
What?
Yeah, that's what it says on this.
Because they're still on their way in, aren't they?
No, they're in the storm.
Yeah, but they're still nowhere near the eye, are they?
No, they're by the eye.
I mean, it will have a tight gradient, but that doesn't sound right to me.
No, that's not way too high.
Pictures and casual discussion where the plane's at.
So they're probably about 10 or 20 miles from the center of the eye. It would be an extraordinarily tight gradient if it's only 984 there, but I am not sure about that. I mean, it will have very tight spacing because it's a small storm, but anyways, thing is though, you could be right, because what you usually get with those tighter isobars usually means it makes those winds stronger. So it's when you see that kind of thing, when the pressure falls very quickly, usually the winds are much stronger as well. But the latest indications right now are that the storm strength might just be tapering off slightly, but we expect that it is still near 175 miles per hour and low 930s in terms of pressure, although the last flight that went through there, I think they only got 100. Did they only get 145 knot winds in the end? Or no, they got a bit more than that. They got at least 150. I don't know if someone on our team could post the latest chart on that. It was around 150 exactly, I think, or rounded to the nearest 5. So 150 knot flight level winds for the latest Air Force plane that just passed through the eye there in the northeastern quadrant. That's lower than it was an hour ago. Still would support a borderline Category 5 at least. So I reckon National Hurricane Center might keep it at 165 at the advisory, bearing in mind all of that information, but who knows, they might still go for an upgrade. But I think it's pretty clear at one point here that it was 175 miles per hour, and we're just not sure whether it still is that strong, because signs are that a slight weakening trend has just begun. Let's see, latest eye temperature, still 21 degrees Celsius, so still a very warm eye in there. Let's take a look at visible and infrared merged there. Look at that fascinating imagery of the storm appearing out of the night into that visible daylight imagery. Some big cloud tops blowing up all around the western and northern fringes of the storm itself, but when you look at that imagery more there, a big drop off in cloud tops on that western side in between the eye wall and those bands. So that's possibly a significant development there. It certainly looks like the west side is coming up against a bit of a wall here. You'll probably also be able to note that on the latest RAM imagery, the wider scale imagery. Let me just move this into position. I hope you'll be able to see it. So this was earlier yesterday, and this was around there. The satellite peak at around 2 a.m. looked like this. And after that, it's still been hanging around there, and we got those winds at this point. But look, in the last hour or so, it's been struggling there on that western side. We're seeing less greens, less reds, although still just a little bit trying to build back in there, trying to get that red ring back on that western side. But certainly from a satellite perspective, it's quite a way distant from what it looked like earlier this morning. So certainly if you're going by satellite alone, then it looks like it's weakening. Recon estimates sound like that the storm has just peaked about an hour or two ago, and so we'll wait to see what the National Hurricane Center think about this with their intermediate advisory due in the next 15 minutes. Let's see if we can take some more comments right now then. Will the National Hurricane Center continue dropping the chances of development for Invest 96 behind Hurricane Beryl, or will they remain at 30% chance? Well, I think they're climbing down slowly. Model support collapsed a while ago, and really it's only I think the CMC is predicting anything to form out of it now, and it would only be a brief one near the Yucatan. So I think maybe 30 is still a good chance. I think they could drop it to 20. I wouldn't drop it any further than that, though, because there is still always that possibility. But it has gone from being a potential double whammy hurricane to being probably just a brief tropical depression through the Caribbean, although later on in the forecast there is also that possibility it could ramp up again if it enters the Gulf of Mexico, that system behind Beryl, and Beryl itself.
So, kind of the question that I have for you, Nathan, it's actually about the invest behind Beryl. Do they say what's like causing it to not want to develop more?
I've been wondering that. Hurricanes like Beryl can produce terrible wind shear for storms behind them, but it doesn't look like Beryl's close enough to induce that kind of thing. The system behind it's producing very little convection, so I imagine that dry air is just choking it.
Yeah, there is tons of dry air around that area, so I really see no point of it to even strengthen enough or become anything.
Certainly not yet. It's definitely struggling. It's barely got any convection to it at all.
Yeah, I think that explains why the last. I think yesterday that's why the NHC probably dropped the chances of it of forming. But I did notice a while ago when I noticed after Beryl went over land, tons of dry air were coming in already on top, like up north where the invest is. So I just knew that, but not knew, but I thought it might have a chance. But yesterday when I heard that the chances were dropping, I'm like, okay, yeah, probably this system ain't gonna have a chance to become anything.
All right. We expect the update anytime soon here. The last update at 5 a.m. was 165 miles per hour. We wait for the 8 a.m. advisory. I imagine they'll have nudged the pressure down a little bit, but real question mark as to whether they go with 175. I see some of our team reckon they're going to be keeping it now at 165. So really impressive storm, incredible winds as we continue to monitor it on first visible imagery here, and the update is out. It is still 165 miles per hour, pressure of 934 millibars, moving west-northwest at 22 miles per hour. So the National Hurricane Center keeping it at 165, but I fully think that it was 175 earlier on, and that I think they just missed out on it, but I don't know. Just waiting for the advisory text to appear and whether they've changed any watches and warnings. But of course we know that there is obviously a hurricane warning in Jamaica We
The
expect
advisory just came out.
Yeah,
Sorry to
we
interrupt.
had that. It
Yeah,
stayed
it just
at
came out.
165, but I'm just waiting for the actual text. Unless you've got
Yeah,
it. Changes in warnings, things like that.
let me take a look, because where do I have it?
We
No,
should get it
no.
any time now, anyways.
No, I just got the tweet from the National Hurricane Center. Yeah. Advisory 15, Barrow expects
It's sad. Sometimes you first hear about the advisory from the tweeter now rather than the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah, that's why I have my phone next to me.
Fair enough.
If the NHC keeps it at 165,
Yeah, they have.
does that mean it's going to be keeping it as a Category 5, or are they downgrading it to a high-end Cat 4?
Well, no, it's still a Category 5.
5. Barrow expect to bring life-threatening winds and storm surge to Jamaica on Wednesday. Hurricane Hunter's aircraft report little changes in strength over the past few hours. That was from the tweet I'm reading, but I'm still waiting, for the text.
I think basically NHC have disregarded the earlier past that happened, and they may be right in that. Artemis says upgrade to 175 in postseason guaranteed. You might be right on that.
Yeah, he's.
So weakening should begin later today, but Beryl is still expected to be near major hurricane intensity as it moves into the Central Caribbean and passes near Jamaica on Wednesday and the Cayman Islands on Thursday. Additional weakening is expected thereafter, though Beryl is forecast to remain a hurricane in the northwestern Caribbean.
Nathan, from the NHC public advisory, the central pressure is 935 millibars. They have that on their public advisory for Beryl.
That was their last one. They've got 934 now. I'm still waiting to see the text. I just want to find out if there's been any new warnings issued.
I feel like the Cayman Islands should be in the warning right now, probably.
Should.
Yeah, what was it,
maybe.
like Hurricane Watch?
Yeah, it's a
Hurricane
watch. They should have upped it to a warning by now.
Yeah, I think it should be up to warning by this time.
Well, I think they will by 11.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see why not. So they haven't changed any warnings at the update either. So a reminder of the current warnings: hurricane warning for Jamaica, hurricane watch for the Cayman Islands, tropical storm warning for the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta Palenque westward into Haiti and through to the western tip of Haiti at Anse de Haino. And I've just received the full text now. Just to read out the hazards there. Hurricane conditions expected to reach the coast of Jamaica within the warning area on Wednesday. Winds expected to first reach tropical storm strength early on Wednesday, making outside preparations difficult or dangerous. Tropical storm conditions expected along the south coast of Hispaniola later today, and hurricane conditions could begin on Thursday across the Cayman Islands. Hurricane force winds extend outwards up to 40 miles, and tropical storm force winds extend outwards up to 125 miles. There was a NOAA buoy out there, 42059, to the north of the eye, recently reported a sustained wind of 72 miles per hour and a wind gust of 94. And we're expecting storm surge of up to 4 to 6 feet above normal tide levels in areas of onshore winds along the immediate coast of Jamaica, and up to 1 to 3 feet in the Cayman Islands and 1 to 3 feet along the southern coast of Hispaniola. Rainfall 4 to 8 inches with localized maximums of 12 across Jamaica on Wednesday. This rainfall is likely to cause flash flooding, Rainfall from outer bands of Beryl should impact mainly southern portions of Hispaniola today into Wednesday, with 2 to 6 inches of rain possible. And large swells generated by Beryl will continue across the Windward and southern Leeward Islands during the next couple of days. Swells also are expected to reach the southern coasts of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola later today. These swells are expected to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. And as we've been seeing, Puerto Rico getting some substantial rainfall at times there and some gusty winds. Let's have another look at the radar of Beryl right now. It's halfway between two radar points, so the storm doesn't look very good on radar because neither of them can catch the eye properly. We're just seeing it from a distance. What you can see though is a very chunky band there on that northern side, just throwing itself past the coast of Puerto Rico and moving into the Dominican Republic pretty shortly. Around the Mona Passage and towards Isla Sayona and La Romana in the Dominican Republic, likely to receive a little trail of rain showers there, which could cause some flash flooding, and pretty soon, probably in the next 3 or 4 hours, it could start. But back to our visible imagery of the storm right now. What a monster it is at the moment. An extremely powerful storm. Still 165 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center. A very extreme storm. Aaron Xiong there. Welcome aboard. Thanks for becoming a member. It's great to have you with us. Appreciate that. And I don't know what our live streaming plans are here, but I guess we'll keep going a bit longer as we continue to watch this very powerful storm, and I'll go and update the graphics. 165 mile per hour winds. We unofficially placed it at 175 earlier with all of that recon data, which appeared to be extremely impressive. And the storm as a whole is awfully impressive right now, especially as we look again on visible imagery. Check that out. So thoughts from the team right now then. What are we thinking about this?
To be honest, it's just like, I don't know how to put it in words. Like, after I heard that it became a Cat 5, like it was kind of expected, not really, because the chances of it were like very low of it becoming a Cat 5. But when I heard Cat 5, it kind of like blew my mind. Like, I wasn't expecting such early major Cat 5 hurricane at this month. Like, you know, like what you said, Nathan, we normally see these Cat 5s like in late August, early September, in October.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only times we see Category 5s, but not Category 5s in the month of July. Well, mostly Emily in 2005 did, you know, manage to become a Cat 5 in mid-July, but now...
Emily was small as well, wasn't it?
I believe so, I'm not sure. Kind of forgot what
Well,
Emily
it was.
like.
It was pretty small, and I guess that's...
I believe Emily was just a bit bigger than Beryl.
Yeah. And
Bigger, not by much.
now, yeah. And now Beryl taking the spot of Emily, you know, becoming the first early Category 5 in the first, you know, Category
Sure
5 in
is.
the month of July. Like, way early before Emily was even a Cat 5.
High temperatures dropped to 19 degrees.
How much?
19. It was
Okay.
20. It was 22 an hour ago. So maybe some signs of weakening on satellite as well. Especially when you look at this imagery here, western side, It built back up a little bit again in that western eye wall, but look out further out there. Those cloud tops are really diminishing further away from the storm out west. Is it wind shear? It may well be.
I hope so. It might be finally hitting that wall of wind shear that I have prophesized.
Let me take a look.
But we know that the pressure has started to increase. We had a pressure estimate earlier on of about 932, I think. And then we have 934. So we are looking here, maybe the storm starting to weaken.
Oops. That's great.
Hurricane Altony Bronze says, how big is the eye and the hurricane itself? Well, eye size now is about 19 miles. And the whole storm from the southern part of the extent up to the northern band through Puerto Rico is about 640 kilometers, which is happily about exactly 40 miles. 400 miles, what am I saying? 400 miles across north to south.
Nathan, when you mentioned wind shear, yeah, there is very strong. Well, it's starting to the wind shear is starting to increase now as Barrow continues on
It's indicating 15 knots of wind shear there, and 20 knots further forward, but it'll still take a little while to get to 20, but unless that anticyclone's moving away.
I believe so. I think I have to wait until this updates. It updates I think every hour, which is kind of not good, but
you can animate that at the top
yes.
left there. Might be able to. Hopefully, we can see if there's been a. Oh, well, they didn't change the wind shear parameters, but never mind. There's the satellite imagery, and you can see it's heading towards that higher wind shear values, those higher wind shear values, and at the moment is showing 40 knots near Haiti and Jamaica. I mean, that would really weaken the storm. I just don't know whether or how much Beryl might be able to push that aside. Not all of it, but some of it, and reduce that number a little bit, which might just keep it going as a major.
Wow, you could just see how the eye just becomes perfectly circular and then starts to close in a little bit at the last frame. I'm not sure if it's probably eye replacement or is it just I think the wind shear.
I don't know. There were one or two rumblings that we might have been seeing at the start of an eye wall replacement cycle, but I've not seen anything about that really. But it could happen soon. I'm just looking again at the latest satellite imagery. There may be just a slight break in the western side, but we'll need more frames to find out. The eye temperature is actually continuing to decrease now. It's 18.
18?
Oh no, it still rounds up to 19, but it's still decreasing. So, indications here now. First indications of a possible weakening phase from its incredible peak intensity, which occurred just a couple of hours ago. At least we think it was 175. Officially, they didn't quite go that far. They kept it at 165 earlier on and now, and we'll be revising the number down as well on our graphics as soon as they're ready. I have to plug them all through whilst I'm broadcasting and get them to export and link them up. That's why you'll hear a few dings on this stream. That's the sound of my videos finishing, my graphics getting finished, so we'll just bear with that. zoom in a little bit and see what we can make out with the eye. And if we go back to visible, or maybe this form, eye is still in quite a bit of shadow right now. It's quite hard to tell exactly what's going on. But if we switch it back to this image, we're just starting to make out some more of the center of the eye there. Still looking good. And we'll be seeing more of that on that imagery soon. Of course, we've got this viewpoint as well, which is a bit more helpful. It's a small looking eye, and I just can't tell at the moment whether there's maybe signs of weakness, but still looking extraordinarily good. Question about our live coverage. Will we be still doing regular updates after the live stream? Well, of course, we're going to be doing as much as we can on Beryl, because it's going to be a dangerous threat all the way through as it moves on towards the Greater Antilles and towards the Yucatan Peninsula and into the Gulf of Mexico. We will be doing regular updates. We'll have some form of update. We'll be aiming for every 6 hours to have some form of update, which we've been pretty much doing for the last couple of days. But right now, extremely powerful, major hurricane, Category 5. That's Hurricane Beryl. Setting records across the Atlantic with its extreme intensity, almost unparalleled in this area, only really in the company of Hurricane Maria. And if it continues to defy expectations, we could be looking at the strongest landfall in Jamaican history. If it's still a Category 4 by the time it gets there, and if it actually makes landfall, then that will be a record. Although, once again, it still may pass just south of a landfall, but it looks to me as though Jamaica will get hurricane force winds in one way or another. An expanding wind field makes that even more likely. And Memetic says that the anticyclone is being pushed forward as Beryl moves. Yeah, I'm sure that is happening. I'm just curious whether the separation distance is staying the same, because I think it may just have moved away just a little bit, and that will open the door to that wind shear a little bit more. And S-Bot says, what's the strongest hurricane to hit Jamaica? We were talking about it earlier. It was Hurricane Gilbert, of course, that very well-known, extremely powerful hurricane, which made landfall in September 1988 as with winds of 125 miles per hour. Stronger storms have passed either side of Jamaica, of course. Dean was a Category 4 just south. Ivan was a Category 4 just to the south. And Alan had just weakened from Category 5 status and had just passed to the north of Jamaica. So it could easily be one of those situations as well. But in terms of direct landfalls, only 3 have made major hurricane, actually 4 have made major hurricane landfalls on Jamaica. It was Hurricane Gilbert, Hurricane Charlie in 1951, a unnamed hurricane in 1903, another hurricane that moved in from the southwest in 1912. That was an extraordinary hurricane, actually. Late season, moved in and clipped the west coast of Jamaica, moved northeast, and then did a U-turn, and then hit Jamaica again as a tropical storm later on. That was a wacky late season storm, as they can often be in November. Let's just update that bottom bar then. It's now 165 miles per hour, pressure 934 millibars. And there's the confirmation of that. I'll be updating the bar on the left next, and that was going to be my job right now. But this is our coverage of Hurricane Beryl, which remains an extremely powerful Category 5 storm, Plenty of hurricane warnings in effect, well, for the whole of Jamaica. Let's take a look at some cameras right now. We can look at how Kingston is appearing this morning, and it's looking awfully calm. As we'd expect, because the storm is still some distance away, but it will be closing down those miles very quickly, moving at a speed of 22 miles per hour. You think about that. 10 hours, that's 220 miles. 24 hours, that's about 500 miles. So it can move a big distance over that time period. And given that Jamaica is about, I think, 600 miles away from the storm at this point, it goes to show that tomorrow around lunchtime sounds about right. So that's Kingston. This is Santo Domingo, and the bands of the storm will be reaching this area soon. It's going to get much more overcast here relatively soon, but right now it's still looking pretty clear. Just want to see if I can improve that imagery a little bit, balance out those that brightness. There it is. So that's looking out at Santo Domingo right now in the Dominican Republic. Give you some distances. The storm relative to some of these land areas. It's just making its closest pass to the southwestern tip of Puerto Rico, 327 kilometers. It is 344 kilometers from Isla Saona on the southeastern tip of the Dominican Republic. It is 419 kilometers from Santo Domingo. 604 kilometers from Port-au-Prince in Haiti, and 993 kilometers from Kingston, Jamaica, and 934 from the eastern tip of Jamaica. So pretty much called it there, about 600 miles away. We're happy to take comments and questions whilst we're on the air. We're discussing this storm, incredible intensity as we continue to track it. I assume that Recon are still going to be busy in the storm even after that update, guys? I mean, they've not gone home, have they?
Yeah, I think NOAA 8.3 is going back into it again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's still going back in it.
So there we go. We should get some more data relatively soon then, and it will be interesting, really interesting to see if this slight weakening becomes a more of a weakening trend, and that we have seen the peak of Beryl. I think it's pretty safe to say that we have. We expected it to happen before now, so it's overstayed its welcome definitely in terms of its strength, and obviously every forecast so far has been wrong. But there it is, once again looking impeccable on this close-up satellite imagery, only getting better as we get more daylight here. So looking really good. Skipping Rhymes says that we need a wind shear overlay on the satellite. We just looked at one not long ago on Jose's screen. He was showing a wind shear overlay. But the thing is that the data of that wind shear is not always accurate, so we don't really show it too much in case in case we use it too seriously. Wind shear is quite difficult to predict sometimes. With Beryl's faster movement and strong intensity, do we think it's possible it could still be a hurricane by the time it reaches the Gulf? If it trends northwards and moves over less of the Yucatan Peninsula, that is a distinct possibility. And Aaron Chung there, and thanks for becoming a member earlier. Will the National Hurricane Center upgrade it to 175 in postseason? I have no idea, but I think I would. And where is it expected to hit the Yucatan? Any change in that in the last day or so? yesterday we were looking at the landfall near Chetumal, and it has moved northwards there. You can quite clearly see that. I think I can't remember exactly what that area is. It's not Punta Allen, is it? It's further north. It's very sparse areas where the landfall is expected right now, south of Tulum. So it has moved northwards on that cone, and as you can see, along that cone, the storm can move, the center of the storm can move anywhere within that. So we could still be looking at a landfall in Cancun. We could be looking at a landfall in Belize. So one way or another, obviously a further north track there seriously ups the ante in terms of a potential US storm impact. But right now they are forecasting a hurricane landfall south of Tulum in Quintana Roo, through the Yucatan, and as a tropical storm back out over the Gulf of Mexico. Let me just find out what that intensity is at the end, whether they forecasted any strengthening. 65 miles per hour, so still near hurricane strength at the end of that cone. And I guess they've left it as an open question whether it will re-strengthen over there or not. That's the next question. We're also running an automated feed side by side with this live coverage this morning. Of course, that is running 24/7, so if for any reason our stream here goes down, that one will still be there, or if we finish our coverage, we'll be throwing you back to that automated feed, which always has the latest imagery. It's a bit of a pain that I have to go and update all the data manually, and I can't do that whilst I'm live, so every time we finish a stream, you get greeted with horribly out-of-date information for a couple of minutes whilst I go and update it all. But you can check that out, and of course the Force 13 website, where you can check all of the satellite imagery and radar yourself on Hurricane Beryl and any other storm that forms. To reiterate the warnings then, at this hour, a hurricane warning in effect for Jamaica, a hurricane watch for the Cayman Islands, tropical storm warning for the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta Palenque westward through into Haiti, and as far west in Haiti to as far as Anstahino. And preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion in all of those areas, especially in Jamaica. How fast is Hurricane Beryl moving? West-northwest at 22 miles per hour. Apparently we're seeing some very high gusts in the storm, in excess of 200 miles per hour. But the latest indication here is that the storm is actually weakening slightly. Pressure still around 934 millibars. Earlier it looked like it may have dropped to about 932. And we're waiting for any further recon data. There was a dropsonde that fell in the eye wall, I think, a little while ago. It caught flight level winds, or winds at maybe about 500 feet of about 180 miles per hour. I don't know if that was a gust. Yeah, that would have been a gust. So certainly very impressive winds for this 165 mile per hour storm right now. A moment of lovely. Thank you very much for your support this morning, and it's great to see you again. One of our chat mods, of course, and we owe you a lot. Been watching for years already and never seen an Atlantic hurricane in July like this. And a big shout out to the team and our efforts. Thank you very much for that. And Alexander says, based off the the records, I'm still talking about recon planes here, the records broken by Beryl, what does the rest of the season look like And what are the odds of Maryland being hit by a type of storm this season? I am not sure if much has changed since our May 31st predictions, which are online. Just look up 2024 predictions, and that will give you a little idea of what we were expecting back then. I really don't know what else to tell you apart from watching that video, because I have not done much research since. But I expect that, well, it's going to be a busy season. We're going to be expecting close to 20 storms, and a few strong ones at that, and this is one of them. And I suppose you could put it down to an anomaly, but maybe it's more of a sign that the Caribbean is going to be very busy this season, but I really can't tell. Helen says, will Beryl pose a threat to Houston in the far term, considering it's taking a more northerly track? Once again, you look at that cone. If it does ride near the northern extent of that cone, which is possible, then Houston is in play. But right now, I wouldn't be forecasting that, and it seems unlikely. And how would we compare Beryl to Emily? Well, both very powerful storms, relatively small storms. Emily was beautiful as well, as it was moving across the Western Caribbean, and a big surprise even back then. But Beryl wins. It's stronger, it's more powerful. It probably looked slightly better at peak as well. So really pretty incredible there. I'm going to try and get this up here. Geo sent us a video out of Venezuela, apparently, showing, I'm just going to turn down the volume, it might be quite loud, showing flooding that's occurring in Venezuela. Look at this raging river and a car that's just been smashed up against a pole there. Apparently this is due to Hurricane Beryl. I don't know if it is fully to do with the storm, but this apparently a viewpoint from Venezuela. I assume that's this morning. Incredible flooding there. So on top of the impacts that we saw yesterday in the Windward Islands, some serious flooding there in Cumanacoa. And you'll have to excuse me for not knowing where that is. But I will have a look at that and figure that out and see if I can make it a term. Yeah, it's very close to the coast, so it will be somewhat to do with Beryl, definitely. So really impressive storm here, and its impacts have been wide-reaching already. We're looking right now at a combined infrared visible view of Beryl as it moves still generally west-northwestwards. We are waiting for more recon data, which so far in the last hour or so has put out some very slight weakening, but it is still clearly a Category 5 and an incredibly powerful storm. Just seen some more recon data. I think it's the southwest quadrant recently got 110 knot winds, and it looks like it's about, yeah, it's just entered the center, has got an extrapolated 934, still with some decent winds on that, so sounds like it would still be around the 934 mark. And a question whether Beryl is bigger than Ian. I'm pretty sure Ian was bigger. After it enters the Gulf, what are the chances of it strengthening into a hurricane because of the temperatures? There's a significant chance of that happening on a run up until landfall. And what's the current main reason why Beryl is moving quickly? It's all to do with the subtropical ridging. There's a big high-pressure ridge up there in the United States mainly, and like when you see when you see videos of funneling sheep through those narrow fences, it's a bit like that, I suppose, where this storm is getting funneled through a narrow channel here in the Caribbean and forcing it to move more quickly. After it enters the Gulf, can it strengthen to a hurricane? I already had that, actually. Waters have been piping hot, though, definitely. It could become a hurricane. And the peak of Beryl, a lot of people asking about that. We think that earlier on, at around 6, 7 a.m. maybe, it had a brief peak of 175 miles per hour and a pressure of 930 millibars. Right now, it is down slightly. It is 165 and a pressure of 934. National Hurricane Center officially only ever kept it at 165, and I think the lowest pressure they had was 934 as well. So obviously, either way, extremely powerful storm, has been strengthening all night, did strengthen all night, and now maybe some first signs of some weakening, but not much. Let me double check an eye temperature and see if there's any more progress on that temperature decreasing. I don't think so. The eye temperature is back to 19 degrees again. So it's still looking very good. And it is definitely not giving up easily. Look further north and you can see that Puerto Rico is getting quite a bit of the bands right now, so there could be some really heavy rain there and possible flooding. In fact, we can even show you local radar from this viewpoint as well, if I just get that configured. I should have thought about that sooner, I think. Never mind. Let's take a look at San Juan and show you what the radar is currently looking like. Anytime now. Might give you an indication of what things are looking like over there, but they have been getting some heavy rainfall. And look at this, you can see right there, there's some really heavy rainfall just off the coast from those outer bands of the storm. It's passing very close by Puerto Rico overall, getting away with it really, but it's going to be moving on towards the Dominican Republic. They're going to get some really heavy rainfall, and you see this big mass here that's training along. It's all moving in that direction. And as the storm slowly swirls round, you'll see it all moving along over there, but possibly more towards land. And some of these areas could get quite a bit of prolonged rainfall, which could lead to flooding there. And I can't get that off my screen. There. And of course the radar just about reaching the eye, but we can't really see it properly there, but still looking very impressive even from that far distance that we're looking at. But yeah, Puerto Rico, they had quite a lot of rain a couple of hours ago. There were a few special weather statements, but it looks like you're almost done. Of course, there's no hurricane-related warnings there. But of course there could be some localized flooding. Interesting looking image there when we overlay that radar. Hurricane Beryl, still a Category 5 and is heading towards Jamaica. Jamaica is ahead of it there, expected to reach the island just before lunchtime on Wednesday. We're happy to take comments and questions for you right now, so feel free to send them in. Andre said, those severe thunderstorm warnings in Puerto Rico, not quite, they're special weather statements. They were calling earlier for about 55 mile per hour winds, which was just below the severe thunderstorm threshold. Do we think this season will be like 2017 and 2020, where it was Caribbean and impact base? Well, the season's starting as it means to go on, possibly. We can't rule that out, and At least it's a good thing that Invest 96L isn't really forming. Down to a 30% chance. And according to Nubius, there's a ship inside the hurricane right now. So I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly may be someone caught in the storm. It does happen from time to time. But all ships out at sea, they try and avoid hurricanes at all costs. Visible imagery, extremely photogenic once again. Hurricane Beryl there, very powerful storm. We're probably going to finish up at the end of this hour. There's not too much else to talk about, but this storm is still extremely impressive. We'll probably have a video update on the channel at the 11 AM advisory, and I don't think we'll get any more surprises in terms of this storm's intensity, whether it might go back up again. I don't think so, but we're going to have plenty more videos along the way as well. Apparently we've just got some new recon data as well. Here it is. What's it telling us? Just looking right now, nearly 150 knot flight level winds and 149 knot SFMR winds there as well. That's the northeastern quadrant again. They did a little circle around the eye there, as you can see, before they went back into the northeast quadrant after moving in from the southwest. Looking at extrapolated pressure there, 933 extrapolated, and so we expect then that the intensity will probably still be close to 934, maybe 935, but it is still quite close to what the previous intensity was. So still close to 165 miles per hour. Pressure in the lower to mid 930s on that latest view. More comments then. Could Beryl weaken by the next advisory? It's got 2.5 hours till the next advisory, so I would be inclined to think that it could weaken by then. Whether it will or not, that's the question that only Beryl can answer, I'm afraid. What are the chances that it will make landfall on Hispaniola and Cuba instead? It sounds a bit wacky when you first say it, but it would still have to take a big turn towards the north if it was going to do that. But some models have been calling for a pretty close pass to Haiti and towards Jamaica, GFS in particular. But the chances for a landfall up there, very low still at this point. It's outside the cone, and the cone is usually depicts about 2/3 probability of the storm moving within it. So really unlikely it will go that far north. Luke wants us to go back and take a deeper look into Beryl around 4 or 5 AM Eastern Time. Apparently they were monitoring it live hours before the recon. Well, I said earlier that the satellite peak was about 2 AM, and given that it looked like the storm was strengthening still, or maybe not, maybe it was starting to weaken already when recon arrived. So you may be right there in that it could have been stronger earlier, but from satellite presentation the peak was around 2 AM. I don't know when the last recon left last night because we'd already retired for the night, but 2 AM, that's when satellite looked its best, so make of that what you will. Beryl looks like Higos in 2002, a Pacific typhoon there. I can't remember how that storm looked, so I'll take your word for that. And how strong will Beryl be when it makes landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula? The National Hurricane Center in their last discussion said that it was extremely uncertain, and they even said that it could be anywhere from a tropical storm to a Category 3 for its landfall in the Yucatan. How crazy is that? They don't know whether it will be a tropical storm or a Category 3 by the time it gets there. The situation is so uncertain. So naturally, they've gone down the middle. I think they've called for a Category 2 landfall, or I think maybe it was a 1. I'm just double checked that. But on that forecast cone there from the earlier advisory, that the forecast data is from 5 a.m. Yeah, they went with a Category 1, high-end Category 1 landfall there on that forecast, but huge uncertainty. And, is Beryl going to keep up its old tricks and still stay much stronger than that and actually strike there as a major hurricane? One or two models think that could happen. How many days until the Pacific season awakes? Well, that is a point of order, isn't it? Because the Pacific hurricane season hasn't even started yet in terms of bona fide systems. We can take a quick look, I think. Nothing special with this graphic. It's literally just an image of the Eastern Pacific right now, and you can see quite a lot of thunderstorms milling about. There is a 40% chance of development of a tropical cyclone in the next 7 days off the coast of Mexico, but it is an extremely late start to hurricane season in the Eastern Pacific. We've entered July without a storm for the first time since 1964, and if we get to July 6th without a storm, that's only 4 days away. It will be the latest start in the satellite era. We'd have to go back to 1957 for the last time we had such a late start. And without satellites, we don't know whether that's actually true. There may have been a missed storm out there. So definitely right to call out the Eastern Pacific there, because it is off to an extremely slow start. Chances of Beryl hitting Belize. Well, it is still within the cone there, and the chances of tropical storm force winds in Belize right now are somewhere around 30 to 40%. Now, of course, you can easily get tropical storm force winds away from the landfall zone, but the chances of the landfall probably a little bit lower than that, but still quite impressive. I should say a chance there that it could make landfall in Belize, but I would say it's less likely now. And why is the Eastern Pacific so slow? I am not sure. Maybe there's some stable air. Sea surface temperatures have been struggling. Oceanic heat content is definitely struggling. And just really, we've not had many disturbances out there really that we've had to track. There's only been about 3, I think, that have had chances of development. One of them did get to high chance and then blew it. Didn't actually form. And will the Cayman Islands get tropical storm force winds? The chances are high. I think we're giving an 81% chance for Grand Cayman for tropical storm winds, and obviously under a hurricane watch, I fully expect that they will get a hurricane warning later on down the line. Just looking at Geo's just posted there. Yeah, it's still 165 miles per hour on a best track update. They've gone with the National Hurricane Center, the ATCF system. And Kelp is asking about hurricane warnings for the Dominican Republic. They're tropical storm warnings at the moment, so no actual hurricane warnings for the Dominican Republic, but they could still get tropical storm conditions. And that is from, I forget what the name was, from Punta Palenque westwards. I don't know where Punta Palenque is. I'm just going to actually have a look at that, because I need to know this stuff. It is west of Santo Domingo, southwest of Santo Domingo, so the capital isn't actually under a tropical storm warning. They're not far away from it, though. And I do expect we will be seeing some substantial rainfall later on in Santo Domingo as we look at the live view from there, from the bands, because it looks like the bands will just about clip this whole region. So it's going to be something else to watch out for a little bit later on today. And once again, looking at Kingston, Jamaica, a wide shot of the whole area there, and a bright and still day. at this point by the looks of things. Quite hazy, but obviously there is a big hurricane on the way. If you're wondering why it doesn't look so bad in Kingston right now, it's because even though it's only about a day away, the storm is moving at great speed, about 22 miles per hour, and so it's still about 600 miles away from Jamaica, a little bit less than that now, and the storm's size is only 400 miles, so absolutely no indication of this hurricane yet in Jamaica. But that's a view of a nice morning by the looks of things in Kingston, but everyone here and across the whole island should be taking all preparations and really putting out all the stops, because we could be seeing a major hurricane landfall in Jamaica, a worst case scenario, tomorrow around lunchtime. So watching this storm's progression west-northwestward still at this point, just on the very fringes of the San Juan radar in Puerto Rico, and moving up towards the island there, you can see all of those bands, and it does actually look like the southwestern part of Puerto Rico will get clipped with some extremely heavy rain from those bands there. So yeah, some of Puerto Rico there is going to get some very high rain rates shortly, which could very quickly lead to flash flooding. It looks like it's only going to be a very small part of the island there, but the southeastern part of Puerto Rico looks like they're going to get clipped by that outer band. The storm itself still looking impeccable, although the western side does appear to be starting to struggle a little bit. A big gap opening out between that western eye wall and the outer band. So I'm wondering what's going on there. The eye wall itself is still okay, still maybe a little weakening there, and the eye temperature's actually gone up. It's back to 20 degrees Celsius. Now this might be a final flare before it capitulates, or maybe it's going again, but we'll see if we can find out from any further recon data. I think we just had an eye drop sonde, and it is indicating a pressure of 938, so a significant increase in the pressure there of 938 millibars in the eye. Not sure how close to the center of the eye it was at all, but possibly you might want to revise it down maybe 1 or 2 millibars depending on exactly where that ended up. The position was around 15 north, 68.1 west, so it looks to me that was only on the edge of the eye, so the pressure's possibly still lower than that 938 that they caught, although they only got 4 knots at that surface, so I guess it must be quite close to the center then. So probably, I would give it 937 based on that drop sonde. So we're still looking out at that recon data, and from what we've heard there, maybe some more weakening occurring right now, but at this point it is still a very powerful storm. And I think, let's just turn that radar off again. Look at that latest view there. Looks like there is a substantial problem in that western eye wall, because there's a big fragmentation that's started there by the looks of things. Can't always read that much off infrared alone, satellite imagery. I'd be very interested to see what Recon think of that. It'd be really good if they could do a western eye wall pass or northwest, and maybe we could see if we could determine whether there might be 2 eye walls, or like the start of an eye wall replacement cycle based on that that viewpoint. If it is the start of an eye wall replacement cycle, you would think that this storm should weaken substantially from that point. Storms tend to weaken a fair bit in eye wall replacement cycles. Of course, the stronger it is to begin with, the more chance it is of weakening by a little bit possibly a whole category. And of course, an eyewall replacement cycle would open the door to possible interference by wind shear and dry air. And sometimes, on some occasions, eyewall replacement cycles can go catastrophically for the storm, and it can just get completely blown apart as it tries to do that. But we can't confirm that yet, but certainly signs of trouble there from the storm's perspective on that west-northwest side. I'd be really interested to hear more on that if we get any more data. So this is still an awfully impressive storm. Hurricane warning for Jamaica, hurricane watch for the Cayman Islands. I can't even remember what I was going to do next. I was going to do something. I was actually going to switch it back to the raw visible. See if there's any more clues here, but not really. Can't really see much going on there. But we are hearing from our team that there are conflicting signs of an eyewall replacement cycle either underway or starting very soon. So it is possible that we might be starting to see that now, but we don't know yet. Eyewall replacement cycle can also make it stronger and larger than its old self. It's like shedding its old skin, basically, says Dios. If the conditions around it are good, it definitely can do that. I mean, that's exactly what happened with its first eyewall replacement cycle when it was moving through the Windward Islands. But with conditions set to turn against the storm very soon, it would be a bad idea for an eyewall replacement cycle to start now, I would imagine. And then even after that, the storm becomes larger, so it may well become more susceptible as it tries to wrap around and larger eye, more susceptible to breaches of that new eye wall. But as for the time being, it is still extremely powerful. It reached Category 5 status overnight, and more than that, it probably reached 175 miles per hour early this morning. We think the peak occurred sometime around 2 a.m. or a little after that, probably after that. A lot of viewers and our team behind the scenes suggesting that the peak may have been around 4 or 5 a.m. But apparently we're hearing that there's no signs of an eyewall replacement cycle from recon yet. I know Ethan's in one of our chats right now saying that the weakening is probably due to wind shear. But the general consensus is that this storm probably peaked with winds of 150 miles per hour, 175 miles per hour, and a pressure of 930 millibars earlier on. What an insane storm that we've been watching so far, and the situation is going to continue for a long time throughout the course of today and beyond. Kelp says, will Beryl become extratropical when it hits Mexico? I don't think a storm has ever done that this far south, so the answer is no. Sea surface temperatures are still fine. Any thoughts of Belle reaching the Gulf of Mexico and possibly stalling or moving into the US-Mexico border? Stalling, maybe. Earlier, a few days ago, model runs had a little bit of stalling going on there. Landfall near the Texas-Mexico border, yes, that could be the most probable scenario right now, or just south of there. So, possibility. And I think that's all the questions we have at the moment, but feel free to keep sending them in. more of a Q&A than anything at this point. As we keep watching this, it's not really affecting land areas, at least with the strong winds, although once we zoom out again, you can take a look at what's going on in Puerto Rico. Just about to get slammed, or a very tiny part of Puerto Rico is about to get slammed with some very heavy rainfall indicated on radar. Let's show you that again. There it is. And watch the progression of that radar getting very close, just squeaking by that southwestern tip of Puerto Rico with some really heavy rainfall by the looks of things there. Big squalls, could easily produce flash flooding right there. And a few smaller scale things going on elsewhere over the island. And eventually, like I mentioned before, all of that could move on towards the southern Dominican Republic in the not too distant future. Again, radar imagery here, just about reaching the eye wall, but it's way up on the edge. We have another drop sonde, which was well inside the eye wall. It was getting winds, very high gusts, but at the surface it was getting wind gusts of 185 miles per hour. So really impressive in terms of those wind gusts there. Obviously that wasn't sustained winds, which is what is used for the basis of all of the storm estimates that you'll see. A gust, of course, is an instantaneous wind. Sustained winds are what are used over a 1 minute period, is what defines all of the wind estimates that you see from the Hurricane Center and from pretty much anyone else. Hold on a minute, let's just go in order with some questions here. Beryl has 200 mile per hour wind gusts. What are your thoughts? There have been a few wind gusts of over 200 miles per hour. I think mostly at flight level. I'm not sure if any are on the surface, but we have had some extraordinary winds in this storm. Above 200 miles per hour in some instances. And that can always happen in these storms. The strongest wind gust from a tropical cyclone wasn't even a Category 5. It was a Category 4. Cyclone Olivia in 1996 off the coast of Australia produced a wind gust of over 250 miles per hour. That is as far as I know, it's still the world record there. And do we think Beryl will make landfall similar to Alberto, 93L, and Chris? Seems to be a hotspot right now, doesn't it, the Bay of Campeche? And it could easily end up in that same area. It would have to go more towards the south of the cone now if it was going to do that, though. So track-wise, it's possible, but obviously intensity-wise, it should be much stronger than all of those storms. Of course, Alberto was the strongest at 50 miles per hour. Chris, just the other day, was 40 miles per hour. Really didn't last very long at all, and died off very quickly as it moved inland, but did produce quite a bit of rainfall. So I imagine the people of Veracruz don't really want Beryl to come their way. I imagine they're all full up in terms of rainfall, and there could be some serious flooding there if another one visited. Is the Western Caribbean going to have high wind shear? I'm not sure about that. That's the big variable. The National Hurricane Center don't really know exactly what's going to go on there. There's a lot of variables. Of course, the storm could be substantially weakened if it moved directly over Jamaica. There's some high ground on Jamaica, of course, and that can easily disrupt a storm that as small as Beryl, especially. Jamaica could rip it apart. Usually no, but for a small storm like this, it could. But it would have to be a direct landfall, and that brings its own problems. But for the Western Caribbean, wind shear will be probably moderate. There is an area of high wind shear ahead of the storm at the moment, which we'll have to see how it does with that. But if we turn the radar off again, It really looks like, as we watch this imagery, that there is some a significant issue on the west-northwest side of the eye. Any chances of tornado development in Hurricane Beryl? Always a chance of tornadoes in these storms. Sometimes more in the outer bands. Well, usually in the outer bands more than anywhere inside.
I think there's going to be a chance of water spouts, right?
And plenty of water spouts as well.
Yeah.
Will Beryl make landfall in the Cayman Islands? Well, if you're calling for a direct landfall, given how small the Cayman Islands are, extremely rare to actually have the centre of the eye pass over the Caymans. However, having said that, Kiriakou, just yesterday, smaller than the Cayman Islands, had a direct landfall from this storm. In history, or at least since 1851, only 3 storms have managed to make landfall on the Cayman Islands, the strongest being Hurricane Hilda in 1955, which reached hurricane status just as it was passing directly over the Cayman Islands. Plenty of storms have come very close though, but if you're talking about a pure landfall, extremely unlikely. And as always, people asking about whether it will be retired. I'm not going to comment on that. And Luke says that they're not really the type to blood out insane figures, but around 4 a.m. we were speculating peak winds of 175 miles per hour and pressures into the 920s. I don't think that's insane at all. We pretty much went with that in our updates here when we were coming live. So post-analysis upgrades possible? I think so. I would. I think this really did reach 175 miles per hour earlier on. Extremely powerful storm. And just incredible. It really was. We're actually getting a new eye temperature. It's actually down quite some distance to 17 degrees. So that's actually the worst the eye has looked since it reached the Windward Islands yesterday. So a real sign there that the eye is starting to have a bit of trouble, down to 17 degrees. How much storm surge will there be in Kingston, Jamaica? At the moment, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting 2 to 4 feet, I think it was. So not a huge storm surge there, but I imagine they may revise that upwards if this storm 1 overperforms, or 2 looks like it's going straight towards a landfall in Jamaica. Just seeing some more info being posted in one of our chats as well. A ship's 12Z model run forecasting wind shear. I'm only showing maximums of 20 knots. So it's not a given that we're going to get enormous wind shear interfering with this storm. And 20 knots, some storms can deal with that. Sometimes it just goes wrong for them. It's a moderate amount, 20 knots, and whether that model is correct or not, of course, it may underestimate. We'll have to see. Will Beryl's cloud bands hit Aruba? That's a good question. Look a little bit to the south right now, and you can see on the ABC Islands there, just away from that, you've probably got a good view if you look north, but the storm should avoid those islands. I'm just wondering about what will happen with this band. As you can see, it's currently moving this way, and as the storm spins round, it will probably end up curving round that way eventually. Whether there'll be anything left of the band by the time it gets there, we'll have to see, but you could get 1 or 2 little bands there from the storm as they spread out towards the south.
Nathan, may I take a few minutes to talk really quick? I just want to say that since Beryl is how many miles away from Jamaica? I think
it'll be something like 550 now.
Alright, since Hurricane Beryl is about 500 miles away from Jamaica, pretty much it is time to get prepared. Start stocking up on water, boarding up your houses with whatever you guys whatever you use plywood or hurricane shutters, whatever it is. You guys have to get prepared because we are not sure if this is gonna pick up speed or is it gonna stay at the same speed. Yet again, once tropical storm force winds are gonna be coming on shore, it might be a little too late to get prepared, but there might be a little bit of time. But if the governor of a country or a city decides to put a state of an emergency or a evacuation order, please take that seriously. Because pretty much if you decide to stay back, you're putting your life at risk. If your house cannot withstand some kind of winds, seek shelter that can actually withstand 100-mile-per-hour winds, where you don't get injured in flying debris inside of your house or house collapsing. So yeah, again, since Hurricane Beryl is coming closer and closer to Jamaica, time is almost about to run out soon. But you guys have time right now to get ready.
Gotta be today. It's gonna be today for preparation over there. Roger says, will we get to Isaac before July? Wait, what? That was a weird question. We're in July. Before July ends, I suppose you mean. That would require 7 storms. So, no. I think I can say quite confidently no on whether we would get to Isaac. It is 7, right? D, E, F, G, H, I, 6. We'd have to get 6 more storms. It's still impossible. It won't happen. Especially since it looks like we'll be having a quiet phase coming up. 96L may become our next storm, but after that, the models really aren't forecasting anything into the long range.
And Morris Firecracker was asking how fast is the storm moving. It's moving on west-northwest at 22 miles per hour. We're not sure if the recon might find more speed of it, but that's it. Time to get ready right now because tomorrow it will be getting closer and time will be running out soon.
The Blocks Fruit guy says wind shear off the Yucatan Peninsula is 15 knots. So low to moderate there. Remo is from the Dominican Republic. Welcome aboard. How far is it from our shore? It is currently 333 kilometers from Isla Sayona, and it is about 371 from La Romana, 406 from Santo Domingo. And some of those places could get some significant rainfall in the next few days.
Pretty much the whole part of Jamaica is going to be under 90% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds.
Oh yeah, already. Yep.
Yeah, and well, right now they're in 80 to almost 90% chance of seeing 50-mile-per-hour winds.
Wow.
But as you know, Hurricane Beryl will be getting closer and closer. Those chances might be going up to 100 or 100 or 90%. And hurricane wind speed's probability is down to 40 to 60, about 40 to 50% chance. But like Beryl's getting closer, those chances will be going up to see hurricane force winds.
So another comment there, if the 11 a.m. advisory is still a Category 5, that would mean Beryl is a Category 5 for 12 hours. What are our thoughts? I mean, I can talk about whether it might still be one or not by then. It's going to be a close call, I think. Recon, of course, will get their data, and that will obviously be key as to how strong the storm is. But from a satellite perspective, I think it's going to be a very borderline call by the time we get there, especially if we keep seeing this weakening in the northwestern eye wall. It already, to me, looks like it's only a borderline Category 5 when we look at the satellite. Recon, of course, are still getting some significant readings, though. I don't know what their last wind readings are, but they, pressure estimate in the eye is somewhere around 937 now.
Yeah, I was going to say 937 to probably 938 millibars, somewhere around there.
And it's rising, which means that the winds should be slackening, but obviously we're still getting some huge gusts in there. And recently in the northeast eye wall, we found a 185 mile per hour gust at the surface, which could really mean anything, but probably about 160 miles per hour, maybe 165 still, in terms of sustained winds. So, yeah.
Sorry, continue, Nathan. Continue.
I wasn't going to say anything of note, so why don't you go ahead?
Cope asked the question: how many landfalls will Beryl make?
Oh,
well,
so far it's one.
Already, yeah, so far it's one. So if it does make landfall in Jamaica, which probably the track's like almost like what, offshore almost? Is it almost like offshore?
Sorry, what was that?
Is like Beryl like almost offshore of Jamaica, close to land?
On the forecast?
Yeah.
It's very close. I think it could make landfall.
Yeah, if Beryl does make a small little northward jog, then it could probably make landfall in Jamaica. Then pretty much the Yucatan. That will be our third landfall, but again, we have to wait if any changes in direction Beryl can make.
And whether it will make a Cat 5 landfall in Jamaica, a question there. I think we can, even with Beryl being crazy as it has been throughout its whole life, I think the answer there is still going to be no. Let's remember that Jamaica has never had even a Category 4 landfall, never mind a Category 5. So, shouldn't happen, but Beryl could still break another record if it stays as a Category 4 when it makes landfall in Jamaica, which is possible, but the way it's looking right now, we could see some significant weakening if it goes wrongly for Beryl. Fingers crossed, that's what I'm hoping for.
Just hope this thing weakens and not do any more destruction like it did in the Windward Islands. Those places, they can be built back up, but people's lives taken from the hurricane cannot be bring back. We can't.
A recent IPAS got an extrapolated pressure of 934, so we're probably still sticking around 936, 937. But it's quite clear to see here that the storm is not quite looking as healthy as it did earlier on. When it had an extraordinary intensity when it reached Category 5 status. Not only that, but blew up even further to get to 175 miles per hour, according to our estimates at least. But at this point, I think we're going to finish up for now. It will allow us to do some more video updates standalone on our YouTube channel as well later on. And of course it's not really affecting land right now. Of course, some of those rain bands passing by Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. So closing comments, Jose?
Just get ready, get prepared, and prepare for the worst that Beryl can throw at us. And stay safe.
Certainly is. We've got an automated stream running, which when this stream closes up, it will redirect you there. So stay tuned for that. We'll have any data drops on there as well with the storm's intensity, and you can take a look at all the satellite imagery views on there and on the Force 13 website, force13.com/satellite. But for now, we're going to take a little bit of rest here and produce some more updates on the channel. We'll probably have an update out after the next NHC advisory. A standard update, and then I fully expect we'll have more live commentary tonight, probably a few hours as we figure out what it's doing by that point. But as of right now, it is still a Category 5. Signs of weakening beginning at last, much later than expected, and maybe it will lose its Category 5 status a little bit later on this afternoon. Either way, it's heading for Jamaica, 500 miles to go. It could still be a Category 4 by the time it gets there, tomorrow near lunchtime. Winds will be starting to get up early in the morning, so take your preparations now, today, make sure it's all done. That's all from us for now. We'll see you again soon.